So far, when we've looked at variables and data inside of C++, we've looked mostly at what we refer to as primitive data types. Very simple data that's easy to use. Things like integers, chars, floats, doubles, booleans, etc. However, in real life, most data is not so simple. In real life, most things are a combination of multiple properties, and they can perform actions. Object-oriented programming tries to get us to replicate this in a software environment. So today we're going to look at how to create a class, which is kind of like a blueprint for what we want to create as far as our data object. Now, the first thing we need to do to create a class inside of C++ is we're going to use the class keyword. Then we're going to give the class name. Now, a class name needs to follow the same rules of any other identifier in C++. Must start with a letter, can use uppercase and lowercase letters, can have numbers and an underscore even. However, standard practice is to have an uppercase letter as part of our name. So we're going to create a class called circle. Once we define the name, we're going to add in our braces, and we must have a semicolon at the end of our brace. Now, circle is going to have certain properties. We're just going to look at one at this point, the radius. So in order to do this, we need to define how it can be accessed or who can access this information. Now, in future videos, we'll talk about other forms of accessors. But right now, we're going to make everything public just for simplicity's sake, and then we'll get into more complex things in the future. To define things as being public, we'll specify the keyword public with a colon. Do note it is a colon, not a semicolon. We'll then specify our radius. So we have double as our data type and radius our variable name. Once we've done this, we're going to define our methods. Now, methods are just functions that are defined inside of a class. Certain methods are built into and are needed by the class. For example, our constructors. Our constructors will be called anytime we create a new object of this type class. A constructor is very much like a regular method, but has a couple of minor differences. First off, there is no return type. It returns an object of the type of the class, so we don't need to specify it. Second, a constructor must have the name of the class as its method name. And this includes being capitalized the exact same. Then we'll create our parameter list, and I'm going to create a no-arg parameter list, that is one without arguments. Inside my method, I'll specify radius and give it a default value. I can overload my constructor. That way, if I want to pass in a value to set my radius, I can do that. Finally, I can create other methods so I can define behaviors that my object is going to be able to do. For example, we want to be able to calculate the area of our circle. So we'll specify our return type. We'll specify our method name. And you'll notice I have no parameters. That's because instead of having to pass a value to get the area, I'm going to use the radius that is part of my object. I'm going to return 3.141592 times my radius times the radius again. And that's real simply how I can create a class inside of C++.